The night above ancient Mesopotamia was black and silent. Below, beside the unfinished canals, flames were rising from abandoned tools. Baskets, wooden handles, and work equipment burned in the darkness as an army of exhausted gods marched toward the house of Enlil. They were not bringing offerings. They were not asking for mercy. They were coming to overthrow their own rulers. But the most disturbing part of this ancient story is not the rebellion. It is what the gods decided to create after the rebellion failed. According to one of the oldest surviving Mesopotamian epics, humanity was not created to rule the earth. Humans were not made as the final masterpiece of creation. They were made to work. And before the first human could breathe, one god had to be killed. The story survives on damaged clay tablets from ancient Mesopotamia. It is known as the Epic of Atrahasis, and its surviving version was written almost 4,000 years ago. At the beginning of the text, humans do not yet exist. The world is already ruled by gods, but the gods themselves are divided. The greater gods hold authority. They command, judge, and determine the order of the universe. Beneath them are the younger gods, often identified as the Igigi. These younger beings are forced to perform the physical labor required to maintain the world. They dig the rivers. They cut through the soil. They construct canals through the mud of Mesopotamia. Day after day, generation after generation, they carry the weight of civilization before civilization even belongs to humanity. At first, they obey. Then the labor becomes unbearable. The tablets describe their work as crushing. Their hands are worn down. Their bodies are exhausted. Their suffering grows until obedience is no longer possible. The Igigi gather together and make a decision that should have been impossible in a universe ruled by divine authority. They burn their tools. The fire is not simply an act of destruction. It is a declaration that the old order is over. The younger gods march through the night and surround the residence of Enlil, one of the most powerful gods in the Mesopotamian world. Inside, Enlil is awakened. The gates are secured. Weapons are prepared. For a moment, the ancient text does not sound like mythology. It sounds like the beginning of a coup. A messenger is sent outside to ask who started the rebellion. The answer changes everything. The Igigi do not surrender one leader. They do not blame a single agitator. They declare that all of them are responsible. Every worker has joined the revolt because every worker has suffered. And here the official order begins to crack. The ruling gods cannot simply dismiss the accusation. They recognize that the labor truly has become intolerable. The rebels are not portrayed as irrational monsters. Their complaint is legitimate. The system created by the gods is destroying the gods forced to maintain it. A solution is needed. But instead of ending the labor, the ruling gods decide to create someone else to carry it. That someone is humanity. The birth goddess is instructed to form a new creature capable of taking over the burden of the Igigi. Humans will dig the canals. Humans will cultivate the fields. Humans will produce food, raise animals, build temples, and provide offerings. In this creation story, humanity does not begin with freedom. It begins with a job assignment. This is one reason the Epic of Atrahasis has become so closely connected to modern claims about the Anunnaki and the origin of the human race. Some writers have transformed the ancient myth into a story about extraterrestrial beings genetically engineering humans as a slave species. But the clay tablets do not describe spaceships, laboratories, or visitors mining gold. The Igigi and the Anunnaki belong to the religious world of ancient Mesopotamia. Yet removing the modern alien theory does not make the original story less disturbing. It makes it more human. The ancient text imagines the universe as a hierarchy. Some beings command, others labor. When the laborers rebel, the rulers do not destroy the hierarchy. They create a new class beneath it. But there is one detail that makes the creation of humanity even darker. Clay alone is not enough. The gods decide that one divine being must die. The identity of this god is difficult to reconstruct because the surviving tablets are damaged and different versions preserve the name differently. But the basic event is clear. A god associated with intelligence or consciousness is selected, killed, and mixed with clay. Human beings are formed from the blood and flesh of a murdered god combined with the soil of the earth. This is not a peaceful birth. It is an execution followed by creation. The new species carries both elements within it. Earth provides the body. Divine blood provides awareness, memory, and spirit. Humanity is made strong enough to work, intelligent enough to obey instructions, and conscious enough to understand suffering. That may be the most unsettling idea in the entire story. Humans are not only made to carry the burden of the gods, they are made capable of knowing that they carry it. The myth may have offered ancient people an explanation for the contradiction they saw inside themselves. Human beings can imagine eternity, speak to the gods, build cities, and search for meaning. Yet they remain trapped by hunger, labor, illness, aging, and death. A divine element lives inside a body made from mud. But the story does not end when humanity begins working. At first, the new system succeeds. The canals are maintained. The fields produce grain. Settlements grow. Smoke from offerings rises toward the temples. The Igigi are free from their burden. The greater gods receive what they need. Then the human population begins to grow. More settlements appear. More children are born. More voices fill the land. According to the epic, the noise of humanity becomes so great that Enlil can no longer sleep. On the surface, this sounds almost absurd. The ruler of the gods attempts to destroy humanity because people are too loud. But the noise may represent something deeper. It may mean population, disorder, pressure on resources, and a human world expanding beyond divine control. The workers created to solve one crisis have become the cause of another. Enlil sends disease. Humanity survives. He sends drought and famine. Humanity survives again because the god Enki secretly helps Atrahasis, a wise and faithful man who understands the warnings. Each attempt to reduce the human population fails. Then Enlil chooses the final solution. A flood will erase humanity. This is where the epic of Atrahasis becomes part of a much larger and more familiar mystery. A chosen man receives a warning. He is told to abandon his possessions and build a sealed vessel. He brings his family and living creatures inside. Then the storm arrives. The sky disappears behind black clouds. The winds tear across the land. Rain overwhelms the rivers. The world that humanity built is swallowed by water. The similarities to later Mesopotamian flood stories and to the biblical account of Noah are impossible to ignore. Scholars continue to debate exactly how these traditions developed and influenced one another. But the Atrahasis version contains a particularly cold explanation for the catastrophe. Humanity is not destroyed because of moral corruption. Humanity is destroyed because it has become difficult to manage. Think about that for a moment. The gods create humans because they need workers. Then they try to exterminate those workers because there are too many of them. If you had discovered these tablets before anyone else, which possibility would disturb you more? That humanity was created to serve, or that ancient people already understood power as a system that creates life when it is useful and destroys it when it becomes inconvenient? Leave your answer in the comments, because the final turn of this story makes the gods themselves look more dependent than powerful. After the flood, Atrahasis survives and makes an offering. The smell rises into the air. The gods gather around it because they are starving. Without humans, there are no crops prepared for the temples. There are no animals sacrificed. There is no bread, beer, incense, or ritual service. By destroying humanity, the gods have nearly destroyed the system that sustains them. The servants need the masters, but the masters also need the servants. From that moment, the story is no longer simply about divine creation. It becomes a warning about dependence, hierarchy, and control. The rebellion of the Igigi begins because a ruling order demands endless labor. Humanity is created to protect that order. A god is killed to give the new workers consciousness. The workers multiply. The rulers become afraid. A flood is sent to erase them. Then the gods discover that they cannot survive without the very beings they tried to destroy. This is not proof that an alien race engineered humanity. It is something older and perhaps more unsettling. It is evidence that almost 4,000 years ago, people were already asking why life feels like service, why rulers depend on those beneath them, and why creation and destruction can come from the same hand. Perhaps the Igigi were never a forgotten alien race. Perhaps they were a divine reflection of exhausted workers in the first great cities. Perhaps the Anunnaki were not visitors from another planet, but the sacred image of kings, priests, and authorities who lived above the labor of others. And perhaps humanity was shaped from divine blood and clay because ancient people felt trapped between two identities, part animal and part god. Capable of building civilizations, yet forced to spend life maintaining them. The final question is not whether the gods created humans as slaves. The deeper question is why one of the oldest civilizations on Earth believed that this explanation made sense. Subscribe, because the next sealed door leads to an even darker text. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, fragments were found describing the Watchers, forbidden knowledge, and a race of giants who dreamed of their own destruction before the Great Flood. And if the Epic of Atrahasis asks why humanity was created, the Book of Giants asks what happened when beings from the heavens broke the laws of heaven itself.